Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffrona, and it's time for our final daily dose of March of the Machine spoilers. So we just got the full set a little while ago. You can check it out over on MTGPreviews.com. And honestly, we don't have a ton to talk about today. Actually, the big rare of the day isn't even from March of the Machines. It's from March of the Machines Aftermath. But we got the rest of the Multiverse Legends, some interesting stuff. So I figured we should probably do a video and break it down and also give you a little look at what's coming. So as I mentioned, we're finishing up March of the Machines, but March of the Machines Aftermath is actually coming out like 3 weeks after March of the Machines. So we're going to be in spoiler season for that before you know it. In the meantime, we're going to have a ton of March of the Machines content coming up. We're going to have gameplay. We're going to have top 10 videos. Next Thursday, the 13th is early access day, where you can come over to twitch.tv/MTGGoldfish and check out a ton of new cards and decks in action. So all that is going to be coming soon. And also, I just wanted to thank everyone for hanging out this spoiler season. I know I've been dealing with a cold. My voice was a little rough at the beginning of spoiler season, but I really appreciate y'all hanging out talking about the new cards. So anyway, before we jump into it, reminders, I mentioned MTG previews. If you want to see the full set, head over there. And also, if you need any of these cards, now that we got a full look at the set, you can snag them from our awesome sponsor, Card Kingdom, over at cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish. Anyway, let's talk one last time about March of the Machines and also March of the Machines Aftermath. So, somewhat awkwardly, our one new rare today is actually not even from March of the Machines, it's from March of the Machines Aftermath in Yoriel Voice of Zhalfir. But I'm kind of glad they did it this way because it's a good reminder that we got another set coming up super quickly. So officially, March of the Machines releases April 20th, and then Aftermath comes out May 12th, so like 3 weeks later. And this set is super unique. That's a set that's only like 50-some cards, there's no commons, it's all going to be uncommons, whereas in Mythics, it's getting sold in like super small packs, but for the same price as a normal pack, it's going to be standard legal. So it'll be very interesting to see how Aftermath actually works, but worth keeping in mind that this set is coming out very shortly after March of the Machines proper. As far as Yoriel Voice of Zhalfir, it's a 4-mana Simic legendary human druid. It's a 3/3. It says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, up to one target land you control becomes an XX green and blue bird creature with flying and haste until end of turn, where X is a number of cards in your hand. It's still a land, and when a land creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So essentially, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you're going to turn one of your lands into a hasty flying Morrow, which is actually kind of a powerful creature. Assuming you are playing some sort of Simic deck with card draw, you're probably going to have 5 cards in your hand when this comes down. Like 5/5 flyer coming down, hitting your opponent and drawing a card. That's pretty powerful. And then Yoriel is also a Toski, but only for land creatures, which has some interesting build around implications. So just how good this card is, I'm not sure. We've seen some cards like Nissa Who Shakes the World turning lands into creatures being really powerful, although it's worth mentioning Nissa also makes a ton of mana, which is the big reason Nissa Who Shakes the World was such a strong card. Yoriel doesn't actually generate mana. It doesn't untap a land. It's not doubling your mana. It's just making a big creature and then hopefully drawing you some cards, which might make this more like Nissa's Steward of Elements, with its ultimate turning 2 lands into 5/5 flying creatures, which is a powerful way to close out the game if you have enough mana. So we'll have to wait and see. The downside, of course, of Yoriel is it's risky to turn your lands into creatures, because then that's opening your lands up to removal. The nightmare is, it's turn 5, you play this, you turn your land into a creature, and your opponent just goes for the throat or destroys Evil or Braids or Fateful Absences, and then you're down a land. The problem with losing a land is because of Magic rules, you only get to make 1 land drop each turn, so once you go down a land, it's really difficult to actually make that up. You're going to be down a land for the rest of the game most of the time, when if you just lose a random creature, whatever, you can play as many creatures as you want in a turn, so it's very easy to make up a creature being lost to a removal spell, much harder to make up a land being lost to a removal spell. Despite this drawback, there are some fun ways to build around this card. I think the easiest way to build around it is to embrace that last mode, the Toski for land creatures mode, and just try to make a bunch of land creatures and draw a bunch of cards. And then if you draw a bunch of cards, that's also going to make the land you turn into a creature with Yoriel even more powerful, which is really nice. So I'm thinking about in standard, like Awake in the Woods just makes a ton ton of land creature tokens. Anytime they end damage, you're going to draw a card for each of them. Or like Llanowar Loomspeaker, ramps into Yoriel, also can turn a land into a creature. Creature lands like Mishra's Foundry, maybe take Yova's Steward of Types, giving all your land creatures flying, is pretty powerful in a deck that's built around that effect. And then you can potentially use it to turn lands into creatures too. So I could see a maybe not super good, because the plan of turning your lands into creatures is just inherently risky, but a super fun standard deck with Yoriel being the centerpiece. Once you get back to older formats like Commander, then there's all kinds of synergies, and I think this will actually be a pretty popular Commander. You got stuff like Ashaya to just turn all your creatures into lands. You're tramping them for mana, you're also drawing cards with them in Yoriel. Kamal, tons of creature lands in the format, and then there's a bunch of cards that can just turn all your lands into creatures. Root Awakening, Sylvan Awakening, Kamal's Will is sorceries or instants can do this for a turn. Nature's Revolt, Living Plane can do this forever. So there's tons of pieces to build around, and I keep some of these cards in mind. We'll have to wait and see. If you think that Yoriel's going to be a pretty popular commander, I would not be surprised to see some of these cards, like Nature's Revolt or whatever, maybe being bought out, going up in price as people build around this new commander. So Yoriel, it's fine for standard. It is the buy a box promo, which probably means it's not one of the most pushed cards from the set. Normally the buy a box promo is good, but not necessarily broken. So it'll be interesting to see not only what Yoriel can do, but what this set does. I really like the idea of Aftermath. One thing we've talked about with standard, and Wizards has talked about with the advent of like Alchemy on Magic Arena, is one of the issues with standard is it gets stale after a while. There ends up being a best deck or a few best decks, and you don't see Bruce very much. It seems like small sets in between the big sets to add some more cards into the standard card pool could be a really interesting way to keep standard fresh. So I'm hoping from that perspective, the Aftermath does really well, because I would like to see more of this. Like, I could even imagine a 50 card supplemental product that's just reprints, almost like a weird core set, like a 50 card reprint core set, just to put some more cards into standard in between set releases. And I could see that being a really, really big deal for standard. At the same time, I'm a little skeptical on the pricing. Are people going to pay full price for packs that only have 5 cards in them or whatever? That we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, it is worth keeping in mind that the cards being left out seem to be commons. Like, it's essentially almost normal packs, but with no commons in them. But still, it's going to feel weird to crack a pack that just doesn't have very many cards in them after people have been so used to opening 15 card packs for the entire history of Magic. We also got our final battle in Invasion of Rin. So Invasion of Rin, 4 mana, 4 defense counters. It's a blue battle. Says when ATBs, draw 3 cards, then discard a card. And then the backside, should you defeat it, is a artifact, Overloaded Mage Ring. Pay 1, sack it, copy target spell you control. Worth pointing out, this is one of the modern versions of this effect. It's not an instant or sorcery spell. It is any spell. If you copy a creature or a planeswalker, an artifact or an enchantment, you're going to get a token copy of the permanent. So this card, it seems pretty fun. The front side isn't great. It's essentially Sift, which is a fine limited card draw spell, but not really something you normally play in Constructed. I mean, the upside of being able to blink it is something, but still, 4 mana sorcery speed, draw 3, discard 1, kind of underrate for Constructed Magic in 2023. The backside is actually very competitively costed, though. I'm not sure it's going to be worth it to like play this, deal damage at it to get it to flip, but it's essentially like a Lithiform Engine activation. It's a one-shot, but if you want to copy a permanent with Lithiform Engine, it's 4 mana plus tapping it. This can do it for just 1 mana, so I can imagine some pretty powerful lines where you're using this to copy the best finisher in your deck, something very, very powerful. So we'll have to wait and see. Front side, like a C, C minus. Backside, though, is actually kind of exciting. It's just a question of whether it's going to be worth getting to it. We also got just a ton of random commons and uncommons. We got the full set today, so we're not going to try to go over all these, but you should head over to mtgpreviews.com, take a look at the whole set. You can sort it, you can filter it, see all of the new cards, and kind of get a glimpse at what this set's going to look like for Limited and maybe a little bit for Constructed as well. Finally, we got the rest of the Multiverse Legends from the set. So remember, these are essentially what retro artifacts were in Brothers War, or what the mystical archives were in Strixhaven, but the theme for this set is Legends. So you're getting one in every pack. It could be a mythic like Yarok or Kenrith. with. It could be a random uncommon. Uncommon is going to show up more obviously than the mythics or the rares, but they're coming in sweet showcase styles associated with their plane. So just like before, we're kind of breaking these down based on arena legality. As far as paper is concerned, these are just pretty reprints. You can use them to bling out your deck in Commander. They're legal in the same formats they were already legal in. So like, for example, Brawl Chief of Compliance, it's going to be legal in Modern. It's going to be legal in Pioneer. But that's because it was already legal in those places. When something like Lethal the Boundless Dawn, that was from a Commander precon, it's not going to become Modern legal or Pioneer legal because of this reprinting. The one place this does change legality, though, is on Magic Arena. We also got all the companions coming back, which is kind of weird. Like, I'm glad to get these really cool versions. I love the Ikoria showcase style. I think that's one of my favorite showcase styles. At the same time, these cards have been banned in so many places. I guess the ones that haven't been banned still do see a bit of play. You see Jingotha quite a bit. I occasionally see like Lutri, Karuga, Kahira, Garuda, Abash. So they do still show up, but it is a little funny that these cards are just so broken that they're banned everywhere. The two cards that actually do change legality are going to be Erixmith the Slumbering Isle and Verticlad Talcor Engineer. These are coming to Magic Arena for the first time. They're going to be historic legal. Also, Historic Brawl is probably going to be the main home for these cards. Verticlad is a really cool super unique commander. This will probably be the next Historic Brawl deck I build. Gives all your creature tokens haste, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you make a 2/1 blue Phyrexian Mirror artifact creature token, and then you can choose a token you control, and each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. It is super, super fun. You play cards that can make token copies of permanents or creatures to try to get a token copy of something really sweet, and then you can turn all of your random treasure tokens and your mirror tokens and your 1/1 whatever tokens you happen to be playing into your deck into a copy of something really, really cool and close out the game. So Verticlad, I think we could build like a historic against the odds deck around it. I don't know if it'd actually be super competitive, but it would be fun. But I do think this will immediately become one of the most popular historic brawl commanders. Erixmith, it's kind of cool, I guess. It's really big if you eventually can flip it around. I could see maybe someone playing this in some sort of like Thing in the Ice style deck where you play this as a land and then you're able to eventually turn it into a 12/12, which is kind of a neat play pattern. It is 4 mana, which is a lot to get going compared to something like Thing in the Ice. But if you actually cast 5 spells and unslumber this, it's going to be huge, and at least it makes some mana while it's sitting on the battlefield. So cool additions for Historic Brawl. Maybe some against the odds potential in Historic. Speaking of Historic, we already knew Ragavan was in this set, but yesterday during the WotC stream, they confirmed that Ragavan is going to be Historic legal, at least to start with. So, as someone who plays a lot of Modern, it seems very unlikely to me that Ragavan is actually going to be safe in Historic over the long term. My expectation is, like Brainstorm, or Memory Lapse, or Counterspell, or Time Warp, this is going to be one of those cards that they add into Historic, and after a few months, everyone's complaining, and they gotta ban it or rebalance it. The real question is, if they do have to do something about this card, what do they do? Let's say they put Ragavan into Historic, which they said they're going to do, and after 3 months, it becomes obvious that it's not a healthy card for Historic. Do they ban it, or do they rebalance it? That actually has a pretty big impact, because remember, this is a mythic rare, so if they just ban the card, you should by all means craft Ragavans, play them in Historic for as long as it's legal, and then once they ban it, you get your wild cards back, no harm, no foul. On the other hand, if they decide to rebalance Ragavan, which I really hope they don't, rebalancing very popular cards from other formats just feels so wrong. But if they do decide to rebalance it, that's the worst case for players, because then you don't get your wild cards back, and you get a Ragavan that probably isn't good enough to see that much play anymore. So it is going to be an interesting experiment, but I wanted to mention Ragavan because I assume they were going to pre-ban it, just based on how powerful it is in Modern. I assume they wouldn't even give it a chance, but it looks like they're going to, so keep that in mind. Expect to see some Ragavans dashing in, making treasures, snowballing, and just generally doing stupid monkey things in Historic, at least for a little while they test it out. So anyway, that brings us to the end of our daily March of the Machines, and I guess March of the Machines aftermath spoilers for today. So what do you think? we've seen the full set. What is your hype level for this set? And I gotta say my hype level is through the roof. I think this set looks amazing. I love pretty much every aspect of the set, outside of maybe Ragavan and Historic, but really, like, the Multiverse Legends are cool. The Team-Up Legends are cool. Battles are super interesting. I can't wait to actually play with those, see if they're as good as they look. I think the set's gonna have a big impact and be super, super fun, but I'd love to hear what you think. Also, of course, a reminder, even though we're done with spoiler season, there's a lot of stuff coming up featuring March of the Machines in the future. We'll have top 10 videos. We'll have podcasts. Once the set actually releases, we'll have gameplay. If you want a sneak peek at the set in action, early access day for Magic Arena is next Thursday, the 13th. So make sure to head over to twitch.tv/MTGGoldfish. We'll be trying out a ton of new decks, checking out the new cards, seeing what this set is all about. So anyway, everyone, thanks for hanging out this spoiler season. You are awesome. I love y'all, and I will be back probably in a couple weeks, I guess. I assume Aftermath spoilers are going to be coming the end of the month, so 2 or 3 weeks, start messing around with March of the Machines proper, and then be back for Aftermath spoilers. So until then, everyone, have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.